Welcome to the Times of Israel's daily briefing. Today is Sunday, July 6th, day 639 of the war. Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our diplomatic reporter, Laser Bearman. Laser, thanks so much for joining me just as you're heading out to the airport.
Good morning. Shavua Tov. Yep, after this, I'm just finishing my packing up, and then I'm going to head to the airport for a flight to Washington, D.C. with Prime Minister Netanyahu, our third since Trump returned to office. So this is becoming quite a pattern.
Right. And optimism is still really high that Hamas and Israel are on the brink of a ceasefire/hostage release deal. As you're about to join Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wings of Zion, or is it Wing of Zion? One wing or two wings? There's a
wing. It's got two wings, but it's referred to as Wing of Zion.
Okay, as Laser is about to join our Prime Minister Netanyahu on Wing of Zion, which is setting out in the afternoon for a couple days in Washington, D.C., we are going to update now on how negotiations are standing and delve into what is happening in Gaza in the meantime. We're also going to hear more reports about how 5 IDF bases were damaged in Israel from Iranian ballistic missiles. So all of this and more when we're back. And we're back. I'm Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our diplomatic reporter, Laser Bearman. Laser, as noted, I'm catching you literally with one foot out of the door on the way to the airport. So again, thanks for taking the time to speak with me. Let's start with what we know about the ceasefire hostage release negotiations right now. And it seems despite all the optimism, there is still a lot to be ironed out. But it was U.S. President Donald Trump's personal word, it appears to me, the word that Israel won't restart the war during the negotiations that brought us to this, shall we say, a more promising state. Do you think it was the word of President Donald Trump that brought us here today?
Yeah, if it wasn't for Trump, then we wouldn't be here. The fundamental disagreement remains. Hamas wants as much guarantee as it can, and much guarantee that will make it comfortable that this war will end at the end of the 60 days or sometime thereafter, or else it wouldn't give up the last asset, quote unquote, it has left, which is the hostages. Israel does not want to accept, and we've been saying this for a year, Israel does not want to accept that because leaving Hamas in the Gaza Strip means that Hamas effectively wins at some point. It will figure a way to rebuild itself and to threaten Israel again. So that is where we remain. However, you don't want to say no to Donald Trump. Trump wants to see this happen, and therefore you have Israel sending a negotiating team to Doha, moving a little bit in Hamas's direction in terms of what the releases will look like. So we're talking about 5 releases, 2 of living hostages, 3 of bodies throughout the 60-day period. That's what Israel seems willing to agree to. But at the same time, Netanyahu's office put out last night that the changes that Hamas is demanding are unacceptable. So we still have not reached it, but with Netanyahu going to the White House, I think we can expect a lot of pressure from Trump, and the likelihood has gone up that there will be this ceasefire. But again, the fundamental differences remain.
Who instigated the Washington, D.C. trip, as far as you know? Was it Trump or was it Netanyahu? Meaning, is Netanyahu actually really at a point in which he can accept some of these really hard to swallow compromises that Israel will need to make in order to really seal a deal?
So this was the result of both of them talking during the Iran war. And I think they both understood that they need to really discuss some serious issues, what the future of Iran is, how they can, where Gaza is going, and whether they can arrange some sort of deal with Syria or Saudi Arabia. So, they both wanted to talk in person, and Netanyahu can't demand that he be, that he be let into the White House. But Trump said, "Why don't you come over and let's talk about this?" And that's what's happening. And this was pretty quickly thereafter. This came together within the period of a couple of weeks. So, this is the third time, as I said, that they're meeting since Trump has been in office. The last time didn't go that great for Netanyahu. So there's no guarantee that everything will be smooth sailing. Is Netanyahu willing to make the concessions needed that, let's say, that Hamas is demanding? Well, they're demanding 3 main things. One is that Israel can't go back to war after the end of the 60 days, or if they feel like the negotiations are not going well. Number 2, that the IDF retreats to the positions it was in during the previous ceasefire before Operation Gideon's Chariots. And number three, that full aid is pumped back into the Gaza Strip. I think on the aid and the IDF positions, that is more likely to be bridged. On the end of the war, the two sides are trying to fool the other side, that they think they really know what the words will mean of the agreement, and that it means what they want it to mean. And that's what both sides will have to bet on. But again, there's not going to be any agreement on what this end of the war looks like. It'll have to be one side imposing its will on the other.
And as you mentioned, there's right now a team in Doha while the prime minister is traveling to Washington, D.C. Everyone is wondering about the timing of this kind of deal. I mean, obviously, you can't rush this kind of thing, but if there is a meeting between Trump and Netanyahu on Monday afternoon, as we're hearing, or late afternoon, Washington, D.C. time, are we expecting the announcement to come out then?
There's a chance, but there are still, it depends on both sides. It depends what Hamas is. It depends what Israel's willing to do. These things cannot be, controlled entirely from the White House. If things move very quickly today, over the next 24 hours, then it's possible. And I'm sure Trump would like that. But, it really depends on what happens there. There's nobody that knows when this announcement can come out because an agreement hasn't been reached yet.
I feel like we've been in this movie before, but the main character was slightly different in that the prequel, it was President Joe Biden who was announcing that Israel and Hamas were just steps away from reaching some kind of ceasefire agreement. And so I do wonder if this, all the spotlight on President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu together, if that is going to be the pressure that is needed on Hamas, or if Hamas yet again will just say, hey, we don't care what you guys think. We don't care about world pressure. Our mission has remained. We are going to survive. We are going to win this war. So it's just very confusing to me whether this buildup will lead to a big fizzle.
I think we have to, keep that possibility in mind for sure. And we have to understand that Hamas is under all sorts of, their position is terrible and it's only gotten worse. But given that they see this as a fight for their survival and whatever they represent, they're not about to give it up. It doesn't matter if aid isn't going to the Gaza Strip. It doesn't matter that the IDF controls most of the Gaza Strip. It doesn't mean that the Arab world wants them to disarm. It doesn't matter that no one's coming to their aid anymore from the Iranian-backed axis. None of that matters. If they feel that they can survive through negotiations, and this is their best chance to survive, they're going to demand that. And so then the question is there any changes in the Israeli position that could lead to a deal? And I think, Trump has much more leverage over Israel, unfortunately. So, that might actually be where you see more movement.
Right. Let's get to a short break. And we're back. I'm Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our diplomatic reporter, Laser Bearman, about to set out to Washington, D.C. Now, you mentioned the crisis of the humanitarian aid and how this is one of the 3 points that Hamas is not really budging on. And we saw that early Saturday, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation reported that 2 American aid workers were wounded when Hamas assailants threw 2 hand grenades at a distribution site in southern Gaza. So the organization said that the explosive devices had been packed with ball bearings, obviously intending to create mayhem and mass casualties. So obviously, this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is a joint Israeli and U.S. effort. So I do wonder how much Israel/the United States will be willing to move on this one sticking point of the humanitarian aid. What are you thinking, Laser?
So I don't think this has much to do with the GHF. The GHF, it seems, will continue to operate. It now is running 3 sites. It's supposed to reopen another one in Rafah. The question is, how much more aid will the UN and other organizations be allowed to pump in? As of now, the UN World Food Program is bringing in 100 trucks a day, which is not nothing, but what they want to see is 500 to 600 a day. So it's less than they would like. Their bakeries are not operating across the Gaza Strip. They still have soup kitchens open, but the soup is, it's kind of water and a couple pieces of pasta. And they are bringing in trucks, which they do self-distribution, it's called. They basically bring in the trucks and Gazan civilians come and take what they take. And it's not great. but that's the way they're comfortable doing it. And we had that incident last week where armed men were seen on top of World Food Program trucks. That's what Bennett tweeted, and then Netanyahu responded to that and said, we're going to stop this within 48 hours unless we have a better plan. The World Food Program told me that was only the third incident where they saw their food being commandeered. It's not acceptable to them. They're the ones who actually reported that to the IDF. It's not like they're trying to hide this. They report all their anytime something happens. They don't like it either. So, it's no one's. I don't expect the GHF to be shut down. I think the demand is that there's, as much as Hamas would like that, I think the demand is that, and the expectation is that the UN program, like big programs like the UN World Food Program, which is able to scale up very quickly to 500, 600 trucks, they can do it, within a day. They say that will provide most of the aid if there's a ceasefire.
And one of the solutions that Israel has proposed is using these militias within Gaza that are not Hamas. And one of them is headed by Yasser Abu Shabab, who yesterday, I believe, gave an interview to the Israeli public broadcaster's Arabic language radio station, Makan, in which he admitted for the first time that his forces are cooperating at some level with the IDF. We discussed Abu Shabab in a recent Friday Focus podcast. But Laser, does it surprise you that at this juncture, when everything is so fraught, when Hamas is definitely, in the spotlight, that he is confirming that he is working with Israel, working with the IDF?
No, I don't think that's any surprise. We've basically known what this is all along. The fact that he's talked to Israeli media throughout this over the past month, he's going all in on this, on the fact that he is against Hamas. He says, he is working with the legitimate Palestinian authorities, the PA, and he's happy to work with Israel if it's for the benefit of the people he's protecting from Hamas. Yeah, he is going all in here that Israel will remain in some way and will protect him. This is a model that Israel could use throughout the Gaza Strip if it really wants to find ways to use fewer of its own soldiers and find people that are willing to fill the vacuum left by Hamas. It might be doing it in other places. We just haven't heard it yet.
Right. Messaging is so difficult to get out from the Prime Minister's office, and it might be even slightly more difficult even as our Prime Minister is heading out to Washington, D.C., because his spokesperson, Omer Dostri, is stepping down. Do you know anything about why he might be stepping down at this really, really, I would say, pivotal moment?
Yeah, it seems at least a part of it is the fact that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's wife, Sarah, did not care for him. They didn't get along. He wasn't loyal, Sarah Netanyahu loyalist. You have people from the Prime Minister's office who are saying that he didn't come from this field. It wasn't a good match. But what I've heard is that, the Sarah Netanyahu factor was certainly part of it. He hasn't said where he's going now. He came from kind of the academic world. He was on Channel 14 as well. And he's been replaced by Ziva Gmon, who's a longtime Likud member, a lawyer who does business in the Gulf and is very close to Sarah Netanyahu. So you can make of that what you will. But he will be on this trip. Dostri will not. And this will be the first time I meet him. So, hopefully it's a good relationship and the Prime Minister's office is more forthcoming with some important information.
Right. It's hard enough to get information from the Prime Minister's office, but there are certain things that we are not allowed to report directly because of our military censor. And that's part of this final item. Iranian ballistic missiles struck 5 Israeli military bases during the 12-day war with Iran last month. And this is according to The Telegraph. So, Laser, what is The Telegraph reporting about these 5 bases? Which bases?
Yeah, so there hasn't been reported on this in Israel because of the censor, because the sensitivity of which bases and the effectiveness of Iran's missiles. But since it's been reported already in the foreign press, we can talk about what they reported. And there was a sense in Israel, we knew that some military bases were hit. There was videos going around as well. Based on research, satellite radar research from Oregon State University, The Telegraph reports that 5 IDF bases were hit. The most prominent being the Tel Nof Air Base, Glilot, north of Tel Aviv, which is where Shmone Matayim is, and some other units, but very close to the Mossad.
That's the intelligence unit, just to chime in there.
Yep. And Mossad headquarters is nearby. And then there's a big Tziporit logistical base where they produce Merkavot tanks and other APCs, the Namer. And that was also on that. And then 2 other bases as well. You can go to the Telegraph and see the map. And they also, from their own analysis, they say that Iran's effectiveness at getting by Israeli defenses improved through day 7, where they got 16% of their missiles through, and then it dropped after that. So you could see some adaptation and learning from the Iranians as well, but also from Israel. So 16%, it's about what Israel was saying. Israel was saying, effectiveness 87%, but 16% is good from Israel's side, but you see how much destruction it can do. So obviously there's going to be a learning and technological race moving forward so that Israel can get those numbers way down.
Okay, Laser. So I wish you safe travels. We can expect, of course, great celebration of the Iran-Israel war and the U.S.'s part in it. And who knows, maybe also an announcement of a ceasefire/hostage release deal. Laser, Nasiya Tova.
Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you from Washington.
For sure. Thanks for listening to the Times of Israel's Daily Briefing. Please check out another episode tomorrow. If you have any questions or comments about this or any other episode, please drop us an email to podcast@timesofisrael.com. Until tomorrow. Shalom.